Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to BPCA's second webinar. We're going to be talking about bird licenses today. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. You will be able to ask questions. I won't be able to see you, so don't wave at me, and I won't be able to hear you, but you can fill in a question on the screen. It will come up over on my screen here, so if you see me doing this, I'm trying to look at the questions. I will try and answer your questions as they come up, but I might have to save them to the end, depending where they are, and I'll try and answer all of your questions today if I can. Okay, so we're now going to start. Okay, so we're going to talk about the general licenses for bird control. Obviously, as you know, there's been a lot of changes recently. So what we're going to cover today is, well, the first point is where did they come from? So where did general licenses come from? Where did they go? So we know we had an issue where they disappeared for a period of time. Obviously, they came back again. And are we finished? Are they going to go again? And what possibly does the future look like? So starting at the beginning, very important to talk about where general licenses came from. Now, the Wildlife and Countryside Act is our main piece of legislation in the UK, which governs the control of wildlife and obviously keeping our countryside safe and looking after the environment. And it's very clear on the Wildlife and Countryside Act that all birds, their nests and their eggs are protected by law. So, you know, sometimes I hear people saying, oh, you know, can I kill this bird? Can I kill that bird? Although we do have, you know, schedules of birds and we have different licensing processes, ultimately the law is that we cannot kill, injure or take any wild birds. You can't take or destroy their eggs or their nests. And you can't trap or use similar items to kill or take wild birds. And also another important part is that we can't intentionally or recklessly disturb any birds, especially when they're building their nests or they've got young. But obviously, we still have a role to do. So not just from pest control point of view, but from, you know, protecting our crops and protecting the environment. So there are areas where we have plants and we have wildlife that we want to preserve, and some birds can become an issue. So in the 1990s, there was a process that was developed, which was called general licenses. Now, these allow for legal control of protected bird species, but only birds that are of low conservation concern. Now, as you know, in most years, there will be changes to the list of birds that were approved. And the reason that that happened was because there's this ongoing monitoring of bird species in the UK. And that's why sometimes you'll see birds come on and go off, because obviously they're monitoring the numbers. So we have these general licenses. And what is a general license? Well, a general license is that. It's a license for anybody. And under general licenses, anybody that has a specific reason and one of the birds that were on the licenses, they could legally control birds for those purposes. But they did need to follow the general license. And there are quite a few things that were in a general license that you have to do. And the first thing that you had to do was obviously identify the bird species. So what species of bird is it? Is it on that list? The next thing that you have to do is you have to decide, is there a valid reason? And the reason part is what I have many discussions with, pest controllers that have been in the industry a very long time, is, you know, what is a valid reason? And the main reasons with the original general licenses, which are very similar now, is to protect public health and safety. So that's the main one that pest controllers would use. And it means just that you can control a specific bird if you're protecting public health and safety. So that means if that bird is causing a risk. Now, some examples of not a reason that it's not protecting public health and safety is, for instance, a bird, is putting bird droppings onto somebody's car. Now, whilst we don't want that, that's undesirable, and obviously that bird droppings are going to, cause issues with that car. That's not actually a reason. That isn't a reason under the old general licenses or the new. But if birds were making drop-ins near the car and somebody could slip on those drop-ins, then it comes into the health and safety. The other reasons that you have is preventing serious damage and disease. And as we go through this presentation, you will see that that's slightly changed now because the disease aspect has changed. And then the last one is to protect plants and their wildlife. And that's where some of the conservation stuff comes in. So that was then, and then all of a sudden we had this. So I don't know about you, but I got the email come through 3 minutes before this all hit the press, and it's one of those oh my god moments when all of a sudden we get notification that the general licenses have been revoked, giving 3 days notice, and you can imagine the panic that caused. But what was it all about? It's quite simple, really, and I think the text on this slide. I won't read it to you, but while Justice didn't change the law, what they did was challenge the law. Now, the Wildlife and Countryside Act, clearly states that wildlife and the countryside needs to be protected. And although from the 1990s we had these general licenses, what they challenged was that anybody could be using them, and people were using them, and they weren't following them, and that the general licenses didn't have enough information in there to say that people were actually acting lawfully and that they were controlling birds for the reasons that they should have been. And while Justice won that challenge, so that challenge went to court and they won. Now, obviously, this put Natural England in a very difficult position, because if they hadn't have pulled and revoked those general licenses when they did, anybody out there that was using a general license at that time could be open to prosecution. So much as it wasn't a good thing to happen, and I'm sure that Natural England didn't want it to happen, on legal advice they didn't have a choice. So they pulled and revoked the general licenses. So what did that mean for us? Well, it meant in a certain period of time, we didn't have any, as they say, legal way of controlling birds. However, we did have discussions with Natural England in the very early days, and we were assured that very quickly there would be a process that all pest controllers could follow so they could continue to protect public health. Now, very quickly, they started working on some new general licenses. Now, as you know, these new general licenses were going to be slightly different. And the old ones, as you can see here, covered damage to livestock and crops and spread of disease. We had public health and safety, and we had the conservation of wild birds and conserved flora and fauna. Now, when they started to look at the new ones, all of this was going to change. Now, the problem that we had was that we had pest controllers out there that didn't know what they could do, and obviously having to apply for an individual license, what would it mean? But we have something in the Wildlife and Countryside Act, which is called Section 4 Defence. Now, you may have heard this a lot over the last few months. It's okay, you have Section 4 Defence. But what is Section 4 Defence? Basically, what Section 4 Defence is about is that there is a section within the Wildlife and Countryside Act that talks about having to control, if you need to control birds for public health and safety reasons, or if the bird is injured, then you will not be prosecuted. So it doesn't mean it's fine, you can go out and kill anything, but the text means that you can actually still control birds if they are a risk to public health and safety, or if the bird is injured. So in this case, it meant that although people didn't have a general license that they could use, you could apply for an individual license, and while you waited for that license to come through, you were still okay to continue within your role as a professional pest controller, as long as you had valid reason. So eventually we got some new general licenses that were brought out by Natural England. BPCA did go and speak with Natural England, and we were quite pleased actually in the beginning because the process was going really quickly. And the first one that was issued was for carrion crows. Now, I'm sure that some of you saw a lot of the stuff in the papers around the unhappy farmers. It's quite important that, you know, this license was brought out first, and the main reason that it was because we were coming into the lambing season. And for those of you that are from rural backgrounds, you know that, you know, some of the issues that crows can cause. So Natural England were very conscious of making sure that they covered the areas that were needed and were most important. The other one that they brought out was the Canadian geese to preserve public health and public safety. We were actually involved with that, as were some other organisations. We were privy to some of the drafts of those licences before they were issued. And all through this process, BPCA, MPTA, and some other organisations have been in regular meetings with Natural England. So it did seem at the time that everything was going really, really well. Just to make clear at this point, because I didn't say at the beginning, everything we're talking about today is only about England. So if you're in Scotland, or if you're in Wales, or if you're in Northern Ireland, at this moment in time, nothing has changed. They are still the same. However, they are being looked at and reviewed, and I'm sure that this process will kick off a catalogue of events for those other countries. So everything was going okay, and we thought we're getting somewhere. And then all of a sudden this happened. So the Secretary of State took over responsibility from Natural England for decision-making powers for the purpose covered by the 3 revoked general licenses. And what happened here was that they decided that they wanted to get loads of evidence. And you may have seen that there was a call for evidence that came out to all BPCA members, and it went out countrywide. There was over 6,000 responses to that call for evidence. And the decision was made that they were going to change the people that were responsible for looking at the new general licenses, and it went over to Defra. Now, obviously, that caused a lot of concern because we'd had a timeline, and for those of you, who use our website, you would see that we had a timeline from Natural England, and all of a sudden that timeline went out the window, and we had no idea of when we were going to start to see general licenses more aimed at pest control. So, especially in particular the feral pigeon that we were all waiting for. So we've been involved with Defra on different conference calls, and Defra assured us that, we will eventually have new general licenses. I'm just going to take this point before I go on, just to answer some of the questions here. So, Nick, virtual, yes, it is being recorded, and you will be able to look at me again when this session is over. What was the public health issue with Canadian geese? That's Mark Cox. Well, obviously, it's more the danger and the droppings and the slip, trip and fall. As we know, with Canadian geese, they can come in large numbers. They congregate normally in areas, parks and places where there'll be cafes. And, if you've got lots of Canadian geese with droppings everywhere, you've got obviously disease transmission, but you've also got slip, trips and falls there. And then I've got an anonymous one under general licenses, GL 35 with reference to pigeons. What is classed as causing a threat to public health or public safety definition. Obviously, with pigeons, the main issue that we have with them is the health impact. So obviously, their nests carry something up to about 33 different types of diseases and parasites. You've also got the droppings, and obviously the breathing in, of dried pigeon droppings. So hopefully I've answered those. And then I've just got one more that's come in. What can we do about wood pigeons as they're not on the new license? That will be answered hopefully as we carry on through, because there is a process for all of those. I'm not going to go and click on the buttons and close those down, so I hope more come up. Okay, so that's where we were. So we're at the point where the Secretary of State has asked for evidence. Loads of people have submitted lots of evidence. And then what Defra did was they looked at all of that evidence and started to gather a picture together to kind of work out where we needed to go next. So this is where we went to, and this is where we are at this moment in time, is that we've just had these 3 new licenses that have been issued. So we have one for conserving wildlife and flora and fauna. We have our public health and safety, and we have for serious damage to livestock crops, vegetables and fisheries. And they're all available for you to use now. So everybody can be using these general licenses. So everything's okay, isn't it? We're fantastic, is it? Oh, not really, because there's some real key differences that's happened with these new general licenses. First of all, we've got some species that aren't covered, and as one of the questions just came up about wood pigeons. During the process that Defra went through, looking at all of the evidence and looking at the challenge that they'd had from Wild Justice, they had to make sure that these new general licenses were fit for purpose, and that they wouldn't be open to another challenge. And in doing that, that gathering evidence process was very important. And out of that, quite a lot of things came out. The serious damage doesn't include the jay, the collared dove, and the lesser black-backed gull. The public health and safety doesn't include the jay, doesn't include the wood pigeon, the collared dove, or again, the lesser black-backed gull and the herring gull. And conservation does not include the feral pigeon and the lesser black-backed gull. Now, the reason that they don't is because of the evidence that they've looked at, they worked out that those species of birds aren't the norm. Now, we know we're always going to get occasions when these birds may come into that realm, but as a standard, those are not the type of birds that they would associate with those types of reasons. And as in this process, they're trying to make sure that this is much more watertight and it does fit, and everybody's adhering to the Wildlife and Countryside Act. They made these few changes. So obviously, some of the big issues for pest controllers, what does this all mean? So there's a couple of things. First of all, every now and again, we're going to have birds in premises that we feel are a risk to public health. However, they're not covered by any of these general licenses. So what do we do? Well, there is the individual license process. And at the end of this presentation, I will take you through a nice flow chart, which, spells it out what process you have to do in each stage. So there is always going to be that individual license that you can apply for. And if you've already applied for an individual license, then that still stands. That's still current now. You don't have to apply for it again. And you always have Section 4. So you will always have Section 4 for if you have a bird and you need to control it, you can apply for your individual license. You don't have to wait for that license to be approved, as long as you're doing it for a reason that's valid under Section 4, which is to protect public health and safety. Now, one of the big areas of change and one of the big areas of discussion has been around goals. Now, for those of you that have been in the industry as long as I have, and longer, most of you, I presume, goals have been on and off in different guises quite a lot. The herring goal, was taken off, and we couldn't control the goals. We could only control the eggs. That was the most recent change. Now, the reason this is due to their poorer conservation status. Now, we've had lots of discussions with Natural England and Defra around goals. And, we all know that from a pest controller's point of view, that goals are quite important, and that there are quite a lot of occasions when we need to control goals. Where we're at the moment is they're looking at new class licenses. Don't all run away when I say class licenses. I know how difficult applying for class licenses were in the past. Some of us will be familiar with them. We've had to apply for class licenses for, birds in food establishments, etc. in the past. They are saying that these new class licenses will be, much better, it'll be much more slick, and you'll be able to apply for these class licenses. But until they actually come out, then obviously we'll do another update when we actually see them. But this is where we are at this moment in time. Now, the other thing that's changed, which is, again, quite important, is some locations are now no longer included. So these are special areas of conservation, special protection areas, and RAMA sites, which are, wetlands, or within 300 metres of any of the above. As previously, if you do need to do pest management on any of these sites, then you do need to get it agreed with Natural England. You need to see and check whether it's covered by any of the licenses that have already been issued. You then, if it's not, then you can apply to Natural England for an individual licence. And even if you already have a licence, you still need to get permission from Natural England if you're doing control on these sites. Again, it's not an area of our bread and butter work, but there are occasions when we do come into contact with them. So that's a sort of snapshot of where we were, where we are. Now I'm going to look at some of the key changes. Obviously, Natalie, myself, Kevin, you can imagine over the last sort of 3 or 4 months or so, we've had many calls by people. One about, the process, but 2 around this section that we're going to look at now. So one of the parts that they had to do to comply with Wild Justice Challenge was to make sure that people were doing everything that they possibly could before they actually kill or take a wild bird. Now, for professional pest management companies, we've always done this, and we always make sure that we go through that risk hierarchy. But they have made it a bit more clear now. And they've used some, different wording. So we've now got this reasonable endeavours are made to achieve. Now, what does that mean? And, what does it mean to us? What does it mean in practice? Well, it basically means you have to have done everything that is possible. You have to have tried everything. And, it's very similar to when we look at the crew, for instance, that risk hierarchy. There will always be times when it's not appropriate, it won't work, it's not practical, then that's fine. But we have to go down that risk hierarchy. We need to make sure we've tried other methods first. And the key thing is that it isn't straight to, I've got a pigeon, I need to kill it. There may be other methods. So it's just getting used to the fact that now it is actually in there in black and white in a bit more detail. So do you always have to try and continue to try? That's one of the questions that we've often got. So we've had long discussions about this, and it's no. So, as I said before, you need to try everything, and you need to make sure that you've documented it. Always document why you've chosen lethal control. Always write down everything that you've done, and keep that record with you. Now, one of the conditions in the new general license is it actually states around record keeping. Now, at this moment in time, they're not saying that you have to keep records and send them to anybody, but what they do say is that you should keep records. And the reason you need to do this is that if you are challenged, so either Natural England or Defra could challenge you, or the police could challenge you, anybody could challenge you, you need to have those records with you. Now, being a BPCA member, you will keep records for everything, so this shouldn't be anything different. I'm just saying to people, just make sure that you're happy, read it through, and ask yourself that question. If I was challenged, would I be happy with what I've written down? Would my reason be okay? Does that tick all the boxes? Now, one of the good things that all of this can do, and again, I'm always saying to people, is the law can be your friend. So the law can help you in many ways. It can make you, able to generate more business. And I've spoken to many members who've said to me, this is brilliant. Now I can go to people and say, no, I can't shoot that pigeon. I've got to do netting, or I've got to, put up some bird spikes, etc. So as with all of these changes, which are challenging, and all of these things are challenging to our businesses, there are opportunities out there. So think about, the alternatives, think of other control methods, think about preventative measures that you can take. There's a lot more money in the preventative side. There's a lot more money in being able to do these type of controls than there is to going out to do a bird shoot. So use them, and trying to develop your portfolio on more of these type of contracts and maintenance contracts. So really important that if you're doing any of these type of bird proofing activities, that you have a maintenance contract, because as we know, you can put up a really good net, but if things fail, and then birds can get caught behind. So it's really good to sell on that maintenance contract. Just checking my questions, all good. So I said I was going to take you through a really nice flow. This is it. I say it's nice. It's a little bit difficult to follow, but it's not too bad. This is really good. Really advise you to print this out, give it to your technicians, but it takes you through the whole process. So, if you're in a situation, do you need to kill or take a wild bird? Yes. If you already have an individual license, that is still valid now. They're valid till the end of the year. If you don't, have you applied for one? And if you have applied for one, then you've got Section 4, as we spoke about earlier. You can also use any of the general licenses. So the Natural England general licenses and the Defra licenses are all valid at this moment in time. And then obviously, if you look on the right-hand side there, you've got all the bits about our special sites and what you need to do there. There is a form that you can use, which is a A08 that you can fill in. So is everything fixed? Is it all done? Is it all over? I would love to say yes, but no, it's not. The new licenses that have been issued will only be valid until the 29th of February 2020. Defra and Natural England have assured us that we will all be involved in a very long consultation process, which will be going on through the summer and through into next year. Please keep an eye out for us asking for evidence and for help and support, because during that process, it will be the more people that we can get involved, the better. And they promised us that eventually we will have general licenses that cover all of the species that are a risk and that are needed for pest management. So just as a quick recap then, what do you need to do? Well, make sure you're following the licenses. I can't stress that enough. Make sure that whatever license you've chosen that fits the situation that you're in, make sure you follow that general license. There's all sorts of conditions in there about what you should be doing. It means you need to read them and understand them. So understand what they mean. Make sure that all of your guys on the ground, because remember, they are the people that are actually doing the control, not necessarily always, the business owner. Make sure your technicians are comfortable with what they're doing. Make sure they understand the license process. Make sure they know what license they're using. Make sure you're actually trying some non-lethal methods. It's very difficult sometimes, I appreciate that, but we need to try and educate our clients and customers to make sure that they understand that we have an obligation to make sure that we've tried other methods first. And keep a copy of your license with you when you're doing your bird work. That way, if ever you are challenged, then you've actually got a copy of your license that you can then show to somebody and say, yes, I am licensed to do this and I'm adhering to these conditions. And keep good records of what you've done and why. I mean, we talk about this all the time within pest management and how important it is to make sure that we are keeping good records, because these will be our backup and, what will help us should there ever be any issues. And lastly, at the bottom there, remember, use it correctly or lose it. I think this has been a bit of a wake-up call and a bit of a shock to a lot of people that, we can't take these things for granted. We're very fortunate that we do have this licensing process. But at any point in time, it could all be taken away from us. And that's, this has shown us that really can happen at any point in time. So keep an eye on our website. Hopefully, throughout this whole of the process, you've seen that we've tried to keep you up to date as much as we can. Obviously, our marketing team is fantastic at getting the latest information out to you whenever they possibly can and whenever we get a new live update. So keep an eye on this website. It will also have all of the links that you need. So any links to apply for an individual license, to go to Natural England for their licenses, to go to Defra for their licenses. You'll be able to get all of the links off of this web page. So keep your eyes on it and keep yourself up to date on there. Obviously, you've got Ask the Technical. So myself, Natalie, Kevin, we're always available. I think more people have used this Ask Technical than ever through this whole process, which is fantastic. We're here to help. We're here to help and guide you through. Just give us a call or drop us an email. We're more than happy to talk you through the process, to guide you and make sure you're on the right track and to give it any advice where possible. And remember, we're also more than happy to come with you and come to your sites, come and speak to your customers, speak to your clients if they're trying to make you do things that you don't feel comfortable with, or if you're struggling to make them understand. It's part of your membership. It's what we're here for. So please give us a call. CPD points for today. You all would have had points allocated. It's 1 point, I'm just being told. If you're on basis prompt or BPCA registered, you will automatically get your points. If you're not, so if you're on an in-house scheme, then all you need to do is go to your CPD page and submit it. So either speak to Karen and she can get them put on for you, and you can log them as unstructured learning. So any issues with that, then either speak to Karen at BPCA or Katrina and they will help you with your points. So I'm almost done. Just to say thank you very much for all attending today. I can't see any of you, but I can see that you're all logged in, which is fantastic. I hope it's been useful. If you do have any suggestions for our next webinars, remember it's all about you. you know, this is why we do this. This is for you, the members. So if you have things you think would make a good webinar, or if you have any feedback for us, if you would like to do one yourself, if there's a subject that you'd like to talk about and you'd like to be in front of this big bright white light, then please, you can contact us. I've got some other questions that have come up down at the bottom of the screen here. What does the license say about shooting wood pigeons to eat? There wouldn't be a general license for that. So that's all I can say on that one there. Seagulls on roof, obviously your goals will be going down an individual license at this moment in time. Yes, thank you for those who've just said thank you. So thank you very much again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you at BPCA's next webinar. Thank you.